I didn't always know I was gay. And I know that might sound surprising coming from a gay therapist and someone whose YouTube channel is therapy for gay men. So let me explain. Hey guys, if you're new here, I'm Michael Pizzullo. I'm a gay men's therapist and coach in West Hollywood. So today I want to talk to you about my own coming out story, but not so much in the narrative of it, but really about themes that I discovered in myself that I think some of you might relate to. So the first one for me is that I didn't have any kind of same-sex crushes or attractions as a kid. I know a lot of gay men remember having crushes on classmates or teachers or whatever it was when they were very young, before puberty, and that kind of clues them in very early that they might, have something going on that makes them different, so on and so forth. I had none of that, zero. Not until puberty, which obviously that's when like sexuality kicks in and sexual feelings and all that sort of thing. So for me, it kind of caught me by surprise, like, oh, like what's this? Like I wasn't expecting to, be more turned on maybe by the guy in the video I'm watching than the girl, sort of a thing. But I think that's, not an uncommon experience, but it was certainly the case for me. And what when I look back now and what frustrates me is not so much that I didn't know, because I think that's fine. I think, everyone has their own timeline, but that there's so much pressure to label yourself and define yourself before you know, which I think is just such a ridiculous statement, I remember, and I think a lot of gay men have gone through this of being, in middle school, high school, like you're super young and people are asking you if you're gay or like kind of questioning you or whatever it is. And, I think a lot of people are closeted and so they have to hide or lie about it, which is very difficult to go through. But I think a lot of people just aren't even sure. Like they're just like, I don't know, how do I answer this question? Like I'm not even sure what to say. I think it's just a completely ridiculous concept that a teenager or a kid has to make a declarative statement about their identity when they are 14 or 15 years old. I mean, if you are sure, that's fine, go for it. But you don't have to either. I think we should be giving ourselves plenty of permission to explore, figure things out, date a girl, date a guy, whatever it is, like whatever you got to do to sort of figure it out and explore what's going on, that should be fine. So I hope for the next generations that we take off this pressure to make a declarative statement before you even know for yourself. I think that's just ridiculous. And the last thing I'll say about this point is that even as an adult, like we're still discovering ourselves and still figuring ourselves out as we go. And I'm still discovering new things. So the idea that, again, like a 14, 15-year-old should have so much certainty about their identity, to me, just the older I get, it just seems absurd. Anyway, I'll leave that there. The other thing too is that I did experience some bullying and ridicule, which I've thought about over the years, and I have a certain way of thinking about it, which is I don't blame the bullies. Truly, like from a psychological perspective, kids do this. They notice who is behaving differently and they point it out because they're immature, right? Adults have more of a filter and more polite. Kids go, why are you an outlier? Why are you acting different? We're all going to point at you and notice it. And then no one wants to be ridiculed, right? So the best way to do that is to join in with the bullies. That's kind of how it goes, kind of Lord of the Flies-ish, right? So I actually don't have an issue with kids being immature and noticing that maybe a boy seems more effeminate or this, that, and the other thing, and just and making note of that, right? The problem really is the adults, because they're the ones that are supposed to be policing and helping kids regulate their behavior. And kids do fall in line when you tell them, what's appropriate and what's not. But I grew up in a generation, I know things have changed a lot, luckily, where it was appropriate and it was fine for kids to call each other gay, to even call each other the F slur. Like that was just not considered too far. I think now, for the most part, it is, hopefully. So I blame the adults, truly. I think if adults didn't police children's behavior, all kinds of, nonsense would be going on. So there was a culture and there was a time where adults just didn't do that, and that was wrong. But I don't blame the kids. I don't think they're hateful or evil or whatever, or even homophobic. I don't even think they know enough about, sexuality to be homophobic. So I truly find that to be an issue with adults not being mature and helping kids understand their behavior. But what I learned about my own experience from going through that is that getting bullied didn't teach me to stay in the closet, because again, I wasn't actually sure if I was even gay. But what it did do is create some sort of hypervigilance about my behavior. Like, I just don't want to draw attention to myself, kind of a thing. I wasn't really even sure like what I was, what to do or what not to do. Like I'm not a chameleon, I'm not an actor, so like I can't like fake it too much, but I just kind of felt like I want to hang back because I don't want to draw attention to myself. And I think that again, that's not even so much of a necessarily a gay thing. I think you look at any adolescent, any teenager, they're so uncomfortable. It's such an awkward time, and you notice that most of them are doing that kind of like hiding and just sort of like don't look at me thing because they're insecure and they don't know themselves yet. So as an adult, I see it differently now, but at the time, it definitely taught me to just sort of hang back and be a little bit discreet. And then more importantly too, in terms of coming to understand my identity, which obviously I eventually did, really was representation. When I saw the gay community, and I actually grew up in New York City, so there was lots of gay people and culture and stuff. So it wasn't like, I never saw it or it wasn't around or it wasn't acceptable. But everything that I saw was very artistic, particularly because I grew up in the theater area. So every gay person I saw was just like enormously talented, artistically, creatively, or like fashions, whatever. And I didn't have any of that stuff. Like I have no talent. I have no artistic abilities. I don't like fashion. I get my clothes from Amazon. Like I'm not into that stuff, So I felt like I don't know where I fit in this group, and it really helps me to see people like Anderson Cooper or just like, I don't know, kind of gay guys that just didn't have anything, they didn't have to bring anything to the table to prove it. It was just like, oh, I'm just gay. Like that's just, it's just my sexuality. It doesn't mean I have to also perform some sort of type of like skill or trick for you, And, one thing I've noticed a lot working with gay men is that I do feel like a lot of people come into the community with this sense of desperately wanting to fit in and desperately wanting to feel a part of. And, whether it's like, okay, everyone's going to cruises, so I got to do that, or everyone's partying, so I got to do that, or everyone looks like this, so I have to look like them. And I think that creates such a unhealthy dynamic, so much social pressure, so much anxiety. And what I've noticed is that when you really know yourself and you're confident in who you are, you don't really feel the need to keep up with whatever. People are always telling me like, oh, in West Hollywood, the WeHo gays or this or that. And it's like, I have no idea what they're talking about. No clue. Truly, like in my building, there are some people that, probably go out to the bars four nights a week. And then there are people who never do. I mean, there's just so many different varieties, but I think when you're in this mindset of still feeling unsure of yourself, it's really easy to get drawn into wanting to perform and wanting to get validation, even just from a social perspective. So those are the themes that I've really reflected on in my own coming out experience that I think are so common for gay men, and hopefully sharing them will be useful to you guys. So I'll leave it there. As always, thank you for checking out my channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're looking to work on issues like this as a gay man, working on, confidence, understanding yourself, social connections, feeling a part of the community, these are the exact issues that I help gay men work on all the time as a therapist and as a coach. And if you want to talk to me about working together, I'll put my link in the description where you can book a free call for therapy or coaching. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.